Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the insights you need. Okay, picture this. Someone survives an 8-day COVID coma, 15 days in hospital, literally faces death. You'd think that's the ultimate ordeal, right? But then they get back online, and suddenly just navigating daily stuff like social media feels incredibly confusing, even threatening. Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a stark reminder that our digital lives, well, they have their own kinds of unexpected dangers, their own vulnerabilities, just like our physical lives, often in ways we just don't see coming.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why today we're doing a deep dive into this really complex world of digital threats, personal security online. We've gone through a whole lot of material personal stories, real experiences, and also insights from a top expert in malware analysis. Our mission here is pretty simple. Pull out the crucial bits of knowledge for you. We want to give you actionable stuff, things you can actually use to navigate the internet more safely, more smartly. Turn that feeling of information overload into some real aha moments. So let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what jumps out almost immediately is how these digital spaces, which are meant for connection, right?
Yeah.
They can just pivot so quickly into places where we feel really vulnerable. It's weird. The challenges kind of mirror real life, but they feel totally different because it's all happening online.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of bewildering, let's talk social media. Specifically, Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it now. Our sources brought up some really bizarre, frustrating stuff. Like, have you ever heard of accounts just inexplicably showing 0 followers? Even when people are following them, it's weird.
Oh, yeah, that kind of glitchy behavior is confusing.
Or imagine getting, like, punished by the platform for just cleaning up your follower list, like unfollowing maybe 1,000 inactive accounts, and boom, you get hit with a 3-day ban for violating rules of following people. What even is that?
Right, and that raises the big question. What are the actual rules on Twitter for following and unfollowing? We know there's that supposed 5,000 following limit, unless you have more followers than you follow. But the details, like how many can you unfollow per day? Why does cleaning up your list trigger a penalty? It's all incredibly opaque. It's like a black box.
Yeah, totally a black box. And that lack of clarity, that's a vulnerability itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then there's this other story, almost like a digital disappearance act. Someone lost all their crucial Twitter account, info, email, phone number, Google Authenticator, even their U-key settings, the physical security key.
Wow, the Yuki too.
Yeah. All just reset
Yeah.
mysteriously. Then they get forced logged out for suspicious activity, and then they can't log back in at all because their phone number is suddenly already in use. It's like being locked out by a ghost.
That's really striking because it shows how even strong security, like MFA, like Yuki, isn't always foolproof. What likely happened there is someone got administrative level access somehow. They didn't need to fully take over the account. They could just delete or change that critical info. The goal wasn't theft, maybe, but just disruption, locking the real owner out, which is just as damaging, really.
It really is, and it gets even more, well, intense. One person we looked at described the rules of the internet as basically just constant attacks. Doesn't matter if you're seen as a good guy or bad guy online. You will be attacked. The scrutiny never stops. Think about this. Getting accused of racism, of discriminating against women, and losing like 400 women followers because of it.
Yeah.
Or, another case, being attacked for not going to an LGBT plus march, even though the person is bisexual. It's just relentless negativity.
Yeah, and that really highlights something important. These online attacks, they're rarely actually about you or about logic. They're usually about the attacker's own motives, finding any target. The real aha moment here is realizing it's not about being fair. It's about people weaponizing stuff, personal attacks. Your best defense, really, is to try and depersonalize it. Protect your own headspace.
That makes sense. So these stories really paint a picture of the effects of cyber threats. But to really get it, we need to look under the hood, right? And for that, we are super lucky today. We have an expert with us, a malware specialist, co-founder of a company called Monarchs. They operate in the same field as, SiteLock, Immunify, BitNinja, the big names in web security. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Yeah, my day-to-day is basically fighting web malware. We scrape it off the internet, analyze thousands, sometimes millions of files to figure out what's malicious. It lets us see the hacker's toolkit, their tactics, kind of from the inside out, like reverse engineering their playbook.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
So from your expert view, what are the most common things hackers are exploiting right now? Where are the weak spots?
Well, primarily we see attackers getting in through vulnerable third-party plugins, especially on platforms like WordPress, Magento, Joomla. These plugins are often outdated or they have known security holes that just become easy entry points.
Right, those plugins.
Yeah. And beyond that, you've got sophisticated scams like phishing. They're everywhere. Attackers use nasty toolkits too. Things like web shells, that's malicious code that gives them remote control of a website. And UDP or TCP floods to overwhelm networks, defacers to vandalize sites. Plus, you see really targeted stuff like spear phishing aimed at specific people,
Hmm.
or whaling, which goes after the big fish, the high-profile targets.
That's a whole arsenal. And our sources also mentioned something really disturbing, this idea of online vigilantism. Like people trying to chase down criminals themselves, maybe pedophiles, when they feel the platforms aren't doing enough. But that sounds incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it is. There's huge risk when ordinary people try to do law enforcement's job online. They can end up exposing themselves to horrible, illegal content or even get falsely accused themselves. And you mentioned Twitter. Yeah, there's a perception, at least, that platforms like Twitter can be slow to act on reports of illicit content. Even though tech solutions exist, like content hashing, creating digital fingerprints for images and videos to auto-detect bad stuff.
Right, that technology exists.
Exactly. So when people feel nothing's being done, they might be tempted to take matters into their own hands. And that can have really serious consequences for their own safety and legally, too.
And what about if you just try to help someone who's being harassed or hacked? Our sources showed that even just trying to assist can make you the next target. Like one person was helping a victim deal with nasty DMs and hacking attempts, and suddenly their own accounts, Twitter, iCloud, even an IO account got compromised. Security settings just reset, just like that.
Yeah, that's a classic escalation tactic. When you get involved, you basically enter the attacker's radar, their threat model. It just shows anyone can become a target, especially if you're seen as disrupting their activities. The big takeaway there is you have to be relentlessly proactive about your own security, because the moment you're visible online, you are potentially on someone's list.
Okay, so that leads us to the crucial part. How do you actually fortify your digital fortress? If you realize you're under attack, what's the absolute first thing you need to do to stop the bleeding?
Right. The absolute foundation, the first move, immediately change your email address password, then your username, then other passwords.
Yeah.
But the email is number one. It's the most critical because if someone controls your email, they basically have the keys to the kingdom for almost everything else you do online. That's how you try to stop the attack right at the source.
Okay, email first. Got it. But what about multi-factor authentication, MFA? We're always told that's the gold standard. But you mentioned even UKIs can be bypassed.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. MFA is absolutely crucial. Don't get me wrong. It adds a huge layer of security. You should definitely use it. But yes, in some very sophisticated attacks, even MFA tokens can potentially be compromised or bypassed. It really just highlights that you need layered security. You can't rely on just one thing. It goes beyond simple two-factor.
So it's not about finding one magic bullet.
Exactly. Security isn't about one perfect lock. It's about building multiple walls, multiple layers, and understanding that, realistically, no single layer is ever going to be 100% impenetrable to every single threat out there.
Okay, so thinking about layers, what does that mean for just our everyday habits online? How do we build those layers beyond the basics?
Well, one really critical strategy is email segmentation. I strongly recommend having at least 3 separate email accounts, minimum. One just for financial stuff, banking, credit cards, investments, nothing else. Another one for all your personal communications, friends, family. And a third one, kind of a throwaway for everything else, coupons, newsletters, retail signups, basically anything likely to generate spam or get sold on lists.
Okay, 3 emails.
And crucially, each one needs a unique, strong, randomly generated username and password. Don't reuse them. That human tendency we have to reuse passwords across different sites, that's probably the single biggest vulnerability most of us create for ourselves.
That makes sense, but wow, that's a lot of unique passwords to remember. What about password managers? Lots of people use them. Are they not secure enough in your view?
That's a great question. And honestly, it touches on different security philosophies. Look, password managers are generally very good. They help you create and manage unique, complex passwords for hundreds of sites, which is vital, way better than reusing passwords. But I personally tend to be very old school on this point. A software-based password manager, no matter how good, is still software. It's online. It has potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited.
So what's your old school method?
My most secure method: write down all the passwords on paper. Store that paper in a locked filing cabinet. Physically secure. Think about it.
Yeah.
The odds of someone breaking into your actual house specifically to steal that piece of paper Much, much lower than a software vulnerability being found and exploited remotely by someone anywhere in the world.
That is definitely old school.
It is. And related to that,
Right.
never, ever, ever save passwords directly in your web browser. Just don't do it. Bottom line, no computer system on Earth, once it's connected to the internet, is 100% immune to every single threat. You have to assume some level of risk.
That's a really sobering thought. Okay, radical but secure for some threat models. Let's shift now to stuff coming at us. Unsolicited emails, DMs, texts. How do we handle those safely?
Right. Your number one defense here is deep skepticism. Just be deeply skeptical of anything unsolicited, never immediately respond or click. The absolute hallmark of almost every scam out there is urgency. They want you to panic, to act without thinking. You see it with fake bank alerts, fake utility bills, fake Amazon purchase confirmations.
Oh yeah, those look so real
They
sometimes.
do. So the rule is always initiate contact yourself. If you get a weird email from your bank, don't click the link. Go to the bank's official website directly or call the official number you have for them and ask if it's legitimate. Verify independently.
Yeah.
Don't trust the incoming message. Assume it's fraudulent until proven otherwise.
Verify, then act. Okay. Now, you mentioned you've seen some incredibly complex scams. Can you walk us through a real example, one that really shows the level of sophistication?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My own girlfriend, actually, who's a very sharp businesswoman, she unfortunately lost $25,000 in a crypto scam. And this wasn't simple.
Oh, wow. $25,000.
Yeah, it started on Instagram. The scammers created fake profiles that had interacted with her real estate agent network, people she trusted. So the initial contact seemed totally legit, like part of her circle. Then they guided her to this incredibly professional-looking website. I had a whole user interface, a portal showing fake investment charts, making it look like her money was growing rapidly.
So they built a whole fake platform.
Exactly, a completely fake investment platform. And they instructed her to go to physical Bitcoin ATMs, use a QR code they provided, and send Bitcoin to their cold storage wallet. And on her end, on the fake website, she saw her balance going up and up, which tragically just encouraged her to send more money, until suddenly she was $25,000 down, tried to withdraw, and of course couldn't get anything back. It was gone.
That's just devastating.
It was. Highly organized, preyed on trust, manufactured urgency and social proof, caused huge financial loss, obviously, but also profound emotional distress. It's a really stark reminder of how sophisticated these things can get.
It really is. It's way beyond just clicking a bad link these days. But okay, these threats aren't just purely digital, are they? Our sources also pointed out some real-world physical security things we might not even think about.
That's absolutely right. You got to think beyond the screen. Physical security awareness is key, like credit card skimmers. Be wary at gas pumps, at ATMs. They can be hidden surprisingly well.
Right? I've heard about those.
Yeah. And also, think about RFID signals. Those chips in your credit cards, your key fobs, they're constantly emitting invisible radio waves. Hackers in public places can use simple readers to grab that data right out of the air without you even knowing.
Seriously, just walking by.
Yep. So personally, I use an aluminum RFID blocking wallet. And for my phone and key fob, I use a Faraday pouch when I'm out and about. Blocks the signals.
Faraday pouch. Okay. Good tip. And what about the data we create ourselves, like photos, documents? We think of them as just files.
Right, but they contain hidden data, metadata. Photos often have the time, date, even GPS coordinates, longitude and latitude embedded in them. You should always use software to scrub that metadata before you share photos online, especially if privacy matters to you.
Scrub the metadata. Okay.
And documents, too. Word docs, PDFs, they can contain hidden info like your full name, sometimes even account details, depending on how they were made. Be careful what you share. And here's something that shocks a lot of people. Companies like Facebook, Google Docs, Microsoft Office 365 read the terms of service. Often they claim ownership rights to the content you create or post on their platforms.
Wait, they own my stuff?
Potentially, yes.
Sure.
It's usually buried deep in the fine print. You might lose control over your own photos, your own writing, your own creations.
That's unsettling. And this next one sounds really wild. Hidden yellow dots on printed documents. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is real. It's a form of tracking most people have absolutely no idea about. Most modern color printers automatically embed a pattern of tiny, nearly invisible yellow dots on every single page they print. This pattern acts like a unique fingerprint for your printer. It can identify the make, the model, sometimes even the specific serial number of the device that printed the page.
Why?
It was implemented by manufacturers ostensibly for anti-counterfeiting purposes, like tracking counterfeit currency, but the result is it's basically a form of tracking without any user consent or knowledge.
Wow. That's an incredible amount of hidden information floating around, hidden vulnerabilities. Okay, let's zoom out a bit now, beyond personal defense. Let's talk about the bigger picture, the digital ecosystem, and trying to get justice when things go wrong. Our sources painted a pretty bleak picture about law enforcement and cybercrime.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's often a stark reality. Law enforcement agencies, well, they're often overwhelmed. And reportedly, they frequently don't pursue cybercrime cases unless the financial loss crosses a certain threshold. Sometimes that threshold is said to be quite high. Maybe even under $1 million might not get priority.
$1 million.
Yeah, that figure gets mentioned, which means countless victims, like the person who lost $25,000 in that crypto scam. They often end up with no real recourse, no justice. Their loss just isn't big enough for the system to focus on. It's a really frustrating gap.
Definitely frustrating. And then there's the whole issue of government-sponsored cyber attacks. Our sources brought this up, nation states getting involved. What does that actually look like?
Well, it's intriguing and often shadowy. You hear reports, for instance, alleging North Korean state actors are behind certain crypto scams, using them to generate revenue. But think bigger picture, too. Remember the SWIFT network bank hack? The one that stole $80 million from Bangladesh's central bank?
Vaguely, yeah.
That money was laundered through casinos. And similar, highly sophisticated attacks hit banks in other countries around the same time. Why? Because the initial victims, and even SWIFT itself, were apparently slow to disclose the breaches, leaving others vulnerable. Operations like that, they often require significant resources, expertise, coordination, which strongly suggests state-level backing, or at least, state tolerance.
So it's not just random hacker groups all the time.
Not at all. And this stolen data, especially financial data, fuels a whole underground economy.
Right, the dark web marketplaces.
Exactly. They're thriving. You can literally go on there and buy stolen credit card information number, expiration date, CVV code for maybe $3 to $20 per card. It's shockingly cheap.
$3 for a credit card number.
Yep. And these marketplaces, they're almost like twisted versions of legitimate e-commerce sites. They have seller ratings, reputation systems, even escrow services to make sure the criminals deal honestly with each other. It's a whole functioning, albeit illicit, economy.
That's bizarre. Seller ratings for criminals. Okay, this might sound counterintuitive, but listening to all this, could you argue that criminals, in a weird way, are actually driving security innovation?
That's a brilliant way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fundamental paradox of cybersecurity. Criminals find and exploit the weaknesses. And by doing that, they inadvertently force us, the defenders, the developers, the users, to create newer, stronger security solutions. If nobody was constantly trying to break things, we'd probably have much less motivation to keep improving our defenses. So yeah, in a strange sense, they are a key evolutionary force, constantly pushing the boundaries.
That's a fascinating perspective. And you shared that you have some personal experience with the justice system related to computer crime accusations. That must offer a unique insight.
I do, yeah. I actually served 8 months in prison related to computer accusations. And what was particularly galling was that the specific thing I was accused of, well, it wasn't even technically punishable by prison time in that country's laws at the time. I was eventually granted bail for $10,000. And that just starkly highlighted the unfairness. If you have money, you get out. If you don't, you stay locked up, regardless of the actual law.
That sounds incredibly unjust.
It felt that way. It really showed me how the system isn't always fair or applied consistently. But here's something that's often overlooked. My experience, and what I've seen with others who've been through the system for computer-related offenses, most rarely reoffend in that way. Once you've been through that, there's a powerful motivation to turn towards legal activities, to rebuild. The desire to never go back there is incredibly strong.
That's a really important human perspective that often gets lost. Thank you for sharing that. Let's dig a bit more into the technology itself. Some sources suggested something really chilling, that new devices, new computers might actually come with malware pre-installed by the manufacturer.
Yeah, that's a deeply concerning aspect of modern digital privacy, or lack thereof. Many new devices, computers, phones, smart devices, they essentially ship with their own forms of surveillance software, often baked right into the firmware by the manufacturers themselves. This stuff operates at a very deep level, often enabling constant data collection or monitoring, and there are very few controls or transparency for the user about what's really running down there. It makes it almost impossible for an average person to detect it, let alone stop it. It's like a built-in insecurity from day one.
Wow. built-in insecurity.
Yeah.
And that ties into this whole fight for data ownership, right? People wanting control over their own information.
Absolutely. It's a huge ongoing battle. Individuals are increasingly realizing how much data is being collected about them, facial recognition, where they go, what they buy, even what they say to your smart devices. And there's a growing desire not just for control, but maybe even for compensation if our data is being used to make others rich. It's a fundamental struggle for digital autonomy, really.
And then there's the legality of code itself being questioned. You mentioned the Tornado Cash case earlier. That seems like a really slippery slope.
It does. It raises really critical questions about technology, freedom, and law. The Tornado Cash situation, where essentially a piece of open source code designed for privacy was sanctioned, effectively making the code illegal. Well, think about the implications. It's kind of like trying to make U.S. dollars illegal just because criminals use cash for illicit transactions.
Mhm.
The code itself, like cash, is a neutral tool. It's the intent and the use that can be criminal. Banning code just because it could be used for bad purposes, that sets a potentially dangerous precedent. It blurs the line between a tool and the actions of the person using it.
That's a really complex legal and ethical area. Wow. Okay, this has been an incredibly comprehensive deep dive. So, just to recap for everyone listening, the digital world, yeah, it gives us amazing things, encyclopedias instantly, GPS everywhere, incredible convenience. But it also harbors these really complex, constantly evolving threats that can feel, frankly, overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely. We've touched on everything from, bizarre social media rules and phantom accounts to incredibly sophisticated crypto scams that drain life savings. And it's not just online physical world threats like RFID skimmers, hidden data in your photos.
Hmm.
It's everywhere. Plus, you've got the limitations of law enforcement, potential government involvement in cybercrime. It's a really dynamic and often dangerous landscape where the attackers are always adapting.
Right. And that fascinating paradoxical idea that crime itself, in a way, drives security forward, forcing us all to constantly get better, stronger.
And that really brings us to the key takeaway for you, the listener, your best defense. It's continuous learning. It's critical thinking. Be deeply, deeply skeptical of unsolicited messages. Segment your digital life. Use those multiple email accounts. Secure your physical devices. Protect your data. And maybe most importantly, assume that pretty much everything you do online leaves a permanent trace.
Yeah. That pervasive nature of digital information,
Mm-hmm.
every click, every keystroke, every online chat, it potentially leaves a footprint forever. Which means the fight for privacy, for security, is not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing personal responsibility. It demands constant vigilance. Because ultimately, maybe the biggest challenge isn't just about what the technology can do, it's about how we choose to interact with it. And maybe what kind of systems and safeguards we demand to protect our fundamental rights in this incredibly connected world we've built.
Well said.
Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.